This is normally Jamila. Welcome to Shifting from Grudge to Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. We are so happy to be here. I'm happy to be back, Jamila. I missed you last week. I missed your energy and the conversation. And, it's such a delight for us, Mia, with our guests because we always get to learn and receive the abundant blessings from our guests. So whilst you say hello, I'm going to head over to Switch on Instagram, and then I'll read your bio afterwards.
Yeah,
Okay.
let me just welcome you as well. And also, Anissa, we really missed you last week. It wasn't the same. It never is the same without you. And it was so lovely to have Elizabeth back on. She just brought
Yes.
so much more knowledge, and wisdom with her. And it was such a pertinent topic that we were speaking about, and about narcissists
Yes.
relationship. So that was very, very interesting. But today, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have Mia on, and the topic is just right up my street. And that's why I said to you before this year is that I just want to listen to you and everything that you have to share with us today, because just from reading your bio, it's exactly what I'm so interested in. So we're really, really excited to have you on today.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here and talk about my favorite topic, what I do every day, what I embody. It's so amazing. So thank you for having me here, creating the space for everybody who's listening. Hi out there from Vietnam. I'm currently in beautiful Vietnam. So anybody who has not been here, I highly recommend it. So yeah,
Oh,
that's
man. So without further ado, let me just introduce our topic for today, and then we're going to dig right in to this conversation. But I'm going to start off with what we said on the actual post. What if healing wasn't something you thought your way through, but something you moved, felt, and embodied? Already, I mean, that's like a draw card for me, Jamila. So I echo this. But this
100%,
week,
yeah.
we're going to dive into quantum embodiment. And the body is like big in bold there. So where trauma healing meets movement, energy, and soul activation. We're going to explore how the body holds wisdom, how energy shapes healing, and how embodiment becomes the gateway to resilience, nervous system regulation, and spiritual awakening. It will be a powerful, expansive conversation. So make sure you got your coffee or your water or whatever your choice of drink is today, because you're in for a ride. And really, we're going to focus on how to heal beyond the mind and to reconnect with your inner strength. Let's talk a little bit about Mia's bio. Mia, how do I say your surname? Dins or Dins?
Dins. Yeah.
Dins. Mia Dins was born in a small village in Germany into a world shaped by trauma, emotional silence, and survival. We can relate to that. From an early age, movement became her first or her refuge, first as a means of escape, then as a way to survive. Sport became her outlet and boxing her mirror. Wow. She rose to become a national champion and went on to represent New Zealand on the international stage. Behind the strength and success, however, was a body carrying years of suppressed pain. Through periods of breakdown and burnout, Mia began to recognize how trauma had imprinted itself within her tissues, muscles, and bones, holding stories that had yet to be spoken. This realization became the catalyst for a profound journey into the deeper intelligence of the body and soul. Now living in Spain, even though she's blessed to be in Vietnam, this gem that she says is hasn't yet been discovered properly. Mia guides others through quantum embodiment, a method she created that weaves physical movement with the Akashic records. Now I know why Jamila's excited. Sacred geometry, mediumship, and intuitive channeling. Her work supports individuals in reconnecting with the wisdom held within their bodies and remembering who they truly are. Oh my word. Her journey is one of transformation from trauma to truth, from survival to embodiment, and from silence to soul expression. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so we're going to go right to the beginning of your story. And I really want to kick off with, when you got the soul insight and divine messages that you were meant to traverse on this new path. When did you get that call?
You mean like when I started to tune into the spirit world and everything? Like that's what you mean? Yeah, because it's such a broad question. I remember when I was for like 4 years old, I actually have always been communicating with spirits, but I never talked about it because I thought everybody's doing it. And I had like, past life memories and, oh, hello, Ronald is there. And so anyways, that was when I was a child, but really, truly, I think my true remembering started when I moved to New Zealand when I was 25. Yeah. After my study in Germany, that's when I started to remember what and who I am and who we are, literally, that we are energetic beings. So, yeah, that was the starting point of everything. Do you want me to go into like nitty gritty things?
Yes.
Yes.
We want to hear it all.
I
Tell
always
me
try
something
to.
before you continue. Jamila, can you hear her clearly? Because it's quite faint for me and soft.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so it's just my side. Okay.
Okay, let me know if you can't hear me. I speak usually very loud. I have a loud voice. But it may be the connection sometimes, right? Sorry about that. Yeah, well, like firstly, when you people when you shift countries, that's a big thing. And I was, mid-20s. That's already a big identity shift, and I left everything behind. The thing though is I wasn't planning on leaving Germany. I was meant to go only for 7 months to New Zealand, and I also had like back there like a relationship still with my first boyfriend, and I just finished my master thesis in sports science. I had plans to come back, like, and set up everything, the whole standardized life you're supposed to have, and then you go on a
Yeah.
job, have a house, kids, and all that stuff. But within myself, I already felt like I felt restricted doing that, even though, it's a nice thought and it's beautiful, but it wasn't like what I was meant to do. It just didn't expand me. But I didn't know at that time. I didn't have the awareness. But when I came to New Zealand, a whole new world opened up. And I was like, wow, what is this? And New Zealand is a highly spiritual country as well, because I do work with, sacred geometry. The energy grid is very like open. There's a lot of spiritual, work happening, and it's pure. It's very far from the rest of the world, basically. Yeah, and of course, I left my relationship behind. I fell in love not just with the country, but also with one of my partners back then. And he was actually one of the Maoris, the original people. They're still like they're very much integrated. So yeah, that put me into a whole different world, and I was experiencing a lot of things connecting to nature and seeing a whole different, part of me. And I didn't realize how restricted I was with in Germany. And I realized there was this black and white thinking, and you have to take this path. And I felt like, no, I don't want to do this. So I started, like backpacking and working in bars and hotels and things like that, and just exploring. And of course, there was always my ego coming in, the conditioned self. Yeah, the version like, you can't do that, Mia. You're already like mid-20s. You're supposed to have a family. You're supposed to have a proper job. What about income? And I would constantly go through this pattern over and over and over again. And yeah, I had, of course, also not so great experiences there as well, because the challenging ones, they really crack you open. When you learn to understand that, you meant to have them to really get you to where you're meant to be, to really look inside. And of course, the relationship ended. And then from the place I lived up north in the North Island. And of course, my partner at that time, he was kind of my home. You put everything there. My English was not great at the beginning, and I picked it up, over the years and things like that. And yeah, overnight I packed my bags, and because he, he betrayed me, and this kind of stuff happened, and I just thought, this is not who I am. And I picked my bags, and then I moved to Auckland, the bigger city, and I wasn't happy anyways. And yeah, when you do that, you kind of like, there's the unknown. I didn't have a big financial buffer at all. That was always the pattern of mine. And because I did, like minimum wage jobs and things like that. And yeah, I feel like when you start leaping, I always knew there's something greater guiding me. I had this innate belief, and I just started to do those things, and then one thing after another would lead me to certain people, certain places. And it's just amazing when you really have the courage to start trusting your intuition, and then everything starts to unfold. Yeah, but I forgot, actually, you asked me about this one experience, and it's actually a major one. That was basically when my papa died when I was 13 years old, because it would challenge my concept of how I grew up with church and God. And I would be challenged in the belief of that, and I thought, what God is taking away the father from a 13-year-old girl? I don't understand that. And so that was perfectly aligned for me to actually break through this belief system very early on. And I felt my papa always around, and I started to communicate with him. Yeah, and I would talk to him all the time. I thought it was just me in my mind trying to grieve. That was my way of healing. But it actually turned out he is there all the time, which is absolutely beautiful. And he helped me then from the other side to remember why I came here and what our soul contract is, and that he signed up for this to leave the world that early, so in order for me to get challenged, so I can step into my soul purpose very early on. So, but it took me all these years, right, over 20 years to understand that. I phrase it now in one sentence, or two or three, but it's just like, it's amazing. So my saddest day became my happiest. I can totally say that right now.
Yeah, it's amazing how the painful experiences take us towards and allows us to realize what our purpose truly is here. And it's always through that journey that we go along, and the experiences that we have, that eventually take us to that space of understanding. But I think we, just as individuals growing, realize this later on, because as a child losing a parent, all you feel is the grief. You can't see what the meaning is, what the lessons are, and you just don't have that ability to really feel the faith and the fate that you are experiencing. So whatever realizations comes, I always feel that it comes at the right time for us, and it will for sure come, because we're constantly working on ourselves, we're constantly aware and conscious of something that's bigger out there than us, and just a predetermined life that's set out already for us, or one that we've already chosen prior to us even being able to acknowledge it. So it's just so lovely to hear how brave you are, to actually take on the challenges of traveling to a new place, learning new things, and adapting so easily. What I'm really interested in finding out more from you, Mia, is that this modality that you've created, and you call it quantum embodiment. For someone who's hearing about this for the first time, how would you describe it in a way that's more accessible and understandable, rather than something that's so abstract?
Yeah, I know there's such a word, quantum and embodiment. And like Anissa said at the beginning, body is like big, in big letters, capital letters, because we are here, right? We are human beings. This is our vessel. We only have one given in this lifetime. There is no other. I have not heard about that we have a second chance in this lifetime. If you do, let me know. But that means we always have to, everything is an embodiment. And I feel like, because I thought about that before when I meditated, because I expected a question like that. And also for myself, I asked myself, I always question things. Why do I actually call it that way? Right? Because we are all channels, but we have to look at our vessel. We have to look what is in that vessel, right? Like and that is not just about the physical appearance, the food we put in, the movement. That's absolutely needed, but I went deeper, the cellular level, the ancestral stuff and things like that, because I went through repeating patterns, and I have I consider that a very healthy lifestyle, and I, did all the right things, but then I still went through the patterns, right? I was constantly inflammation and diseases I caught up, and weight gain, hormonal imbalances, and all these things. And that led me on a journey. Okay, what is going on there? Like, what is happening? And I did a lot of things, the psychological parts with therapy, and then also the emotions and the mind, but the energetic component is so important. So I think that everybody should look at that too, and that's why I call it quantum embodiment. Like, it's a whole picture. That's what I want to point out on that. Like, it's not a one-dimensional thing, because we are multi-dimensional beings. And when I talk about energy, it's really important for people to look at, what are my surroundings? Who am I surrounded by every single day? And especially the partner you have, your kids. This is like bringing in all the energies. I know it can get like the mind tries to grasp on and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much. So that's why I always say, start little by little. It's like you want to plant a garden. You need to look at the soil. So look at your body as the soil. You want to see what toxins are here. Is it fertile, and what is needed before you plant? Because no matter how beautiful the seed is, it will take on whatever is in the soil, or it may not never grow, because the soil is not even fertile at all, right? So often we look at what we want to put in more. Let's say I need more. I need to study more of that. I need to have a different food, more supplements, more movement, more. But what we actually need to do is first let go. What do we need to let go of? Because we're storing so much shit. I'm so sorry, but I have no better word to say that. And I have been full of shit, and I'm sure I have still more to go. And that's a constant cycle, and you need to learn to understand that. And what I do with that program is why I developed that, or why it came to me as a download, is to help people to remember. I do not give like a template. You have to eat this and that. I empower you. I'm going to be your mirror to see what you need, because we all have very individual needs and cycles. So that's why the body came in such a, in the middle, and it's so important to look at first.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Anissa, I feel like I need a session. This is so interesting. But take us through like a typical session that you might have with someone who's new to this and has come to you for the first time.
Yeah, well, the Quantum Embodiment is actually a 3-month design program, because you can only really, of course I have sessions, discovery sessions, a soul reading where I can tap into that. But the first part of the whole Quantum Embodiment program is, when you start working with me, is we need to actually look at where you're at. And so I designed like a body awareness journal, which is more like, you don't need to tell me that you eat 500 grams of pasta or apples, but roughly, okay, I have eaten breakfast, this is what I had, how do I feel after, how does what is changing throughout the day, your energy, when do you get tired, how is your libido, very important, sexual energy. And sexual energy is our creative life force energy that moves through the body, and when that is blocked, nothing is happening in life, right? So, or very, like, with a lot of resistance, very important. That is the first step, and I need at least a week so I actually get an understanding what you're doing. And there's no shaming or blaming. The only person you would lie to is yourself. So I always tell people, like, be really honest, and most importantly, I ask about the bowel motion. Very important. I had a client, he's actually my soul brother, we are very close, and he told me that he only goes and has a bowel motion every 2 days or 3 days. I'm like, huh? And you think that's normal? It's interesting that people consider that normal. Again, no blaming or shaming. I was just asking, okay, there's a lot that is like stuck. You're like constipated, actually. And there was lots going on. He was emotionally constipated. He was in the wrong relationship and things like that, right? So that gives an indicator. I know for myself, when I look at my body and I feel like my bowel motion is a little bit blocked, and then I look at my life, like, what is blocking right now? Where am I stuck up? What am I holding in? What I'm not expressing? Of course, I look at the food too. Have I eaten something? Have I not had enough water, things like that. So this is how I would start basically with people, and include your movement and how you feel. Very important.
Yeah.
This
Movement
is
is a big
powerful.
thing. What do you, yeah, movement's it's a big aspect, and big, has great effect on how we behave as human beings. Speak to us a little bit more about that movement, and what it is that you suggest and how it helps us.
Yeah, I mean, in general, our body is designed to be moved. We have over 600 muscles; they need to be moved. And I actually, funny enough, I just went before our recording here, our live streaming. I read through something from a client, and I remember it's always important, which I also discovered, is our lymphatic system. It's our drainage system, our sewage system, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have a generator itself, so it needs to be moved. So that's why movement is important. And especially here in Vietnam, I observed that a lot, that they constantly move and move their arms. And so yeah
Yeah.
they constantly do movement, and it's very important that you keep moving your body. But of course, I'm not it's not about you have to go to the gym or things like that. It's literally to integrate constant movement
And
during the day. Yeah.
And Mia, I've noticed now that a lot of people are doing a lot of facial yoga, and specifically focusing on that drainage, on the lymphatic system, and making sure that you're doing the correct movement so that you are draining, like you say, and having a proper sewage system working within our bodies. And what can you tell us about the fascia system as well? Because that's where we store a lot, don't we?
Yeah, and that is like, and that's so interesting because it goes really deep, and that it's like like the nervous system as well. It's because I realized now, I came to a point that's my focus has been like on that this year, but especially the past 3-4 months, the nervous system, because I have done a lot of conscious work and brought everything that's in the subconscious. I mean, not everything, there's always something that come up, but so much with my patterns that usually show up, that I realized my nervous system, it's literally my nervous system what is stored. And it's amazing how it stores, actually. But knowing that when it can store so many things that are actually limiting us, how powerful it is to use to actually liberate us, right? And actually using it for us instead of against us. But it's really about awareness and practice. And the moment I start to come from a fear state, or I know I'm like, on lag or something, like gets triggered, I get fear, I just tell myself, just breathe. Literally, it's very much that simple. You don't need anything else. Conscious breathing, become conscious of it, become aware. And it's a practice. It doesn't happen overnight because we are so conditioned to run in survival mode, or to constantly stress, or go to the next moment and worry about this and that. And it's not about being perfect, because we never will be. We are humans. We are meant to be messy. We're meant to have a messy experience, because it's the only way how we learn. But it's about like having the awareness of it. That is the main point here, from my experience.
Yeah.
I just want to read some of the comments here because there's been some interesting ones. Ronald says, if we just stop and think, contemplate, consider the many systems and their complexity. And then he also says, there's another one, and I'd like for you to respond to this. We cannot utilize Newtonian physics to approach this understanding. Would you like to respond to those two comments?
Yeah, I love that, Ronald. Thank you so much. It's amazing. And it is so true. The stillness, right there, firstly, to the first comment, like to come into the present moment. And I'm like, there are so many different beautiful tools out there. And many people post on YouTube, things like that you can do. It's not about the meditation. I sit in Buddha, like lotus position in the Himalayas and meditate for 5 hours. If that is what you want to do, perfect. I personally love to meditate for long times, or in nature. I have also moving meditation where I just move through nature and just become still, and stillness. I used to ride that train and have a misunderstanding that I thought meditation is like you're completely still and in a bliss and you have a halo, above your head kind of thing. That's not true. It's actually to be the observer, to become the observer of your thoughts. And actually, we have a lot of thoughts, and that's okay, but to not try to push them away or bypass them, to also not entertain them, to pretty much see them. And that takes practice to become the observer. You're not sadness, or you're not depression. You're the one experiencing that feeling, and once you step back, it doesn't have such a control over you, which is very, very powerful. With practice, everybody can do it, and then life becomes more a flow. And with the Newtonian physics, absolutely, we are multidimensional beings, so we have to look at it from all perspectives. What I said, that's why the quantum embodiment as a word just encompasses it all, like to look at the whole picture of on every angle, and you can go really deep as you like. And of course, you start wherever you are at, and that's something really important. My approach is I start where everybody is, where my client is with their consciousness, or whoever I'm working with. I can't just expect they know all this, and I have to meet them where they're at. It's very important. Yeah.
So Mia, my question for you, maybe just from a audience understanding again perspective, because energy and spiritual healing and all these conversations for some is woo-woo, and they don't necessarily resonate or connect with it. And I'm not so sure that our audience doesn't. I think they do generally, those that listen in. But for somebody that just happens to stumble across this conversation on the recording later, how would you simplify that they can connect to reading these messages that their body gives through their energy centers? Some practical examples of what to look out for. I mean, I know that if your solar plexus is blocked, or you're giving away personal power. We know if it's the throat chakra, then it's basically, that expression. But how would you help our audience to practically connect to this, to themselves more deeply? And what would be the signs or different examples of that?
Beautiful question. I love that. And I know the woo-woo part. And it took me a long time to get out of my spiritual closet. That's what they say. Because I am also a scientist, right? I studied sports science, and I also measure everything, the tangible and the intangible, because we can only grow what we measure. And I find that very important. That's how I learned and reflected back, because I observed my body. So very simple. You don't even need to know anything about chakras or anything, but literally what you can do, because we have the intuition, we all have that. It's there. It's always a subtle voice, the whisper feeling, whatever it is. And it is very like silent, or like, because it's a whisper, because we are conditioned to listen to the mind. It's very loud. So let's say, very simple example, your friend asks you out to go for a coffee. And when you don't know, you're indecisive, you don't know if it's the right thing, you ask yourself, how does it feel? Visualize going to the coffee, or to that coffee date with your friend. And if it makes you feel like expansive, you feel like excited, then go. But if there's something like, oh, I'm actually tired, or so, no, then don't. But this is like a 1 or 2 second response, and then the mind kicks in. But I haven't seen her in a while. She asked me, I should be kind, I should be social, I'm always spending time on myself, la 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 la, all these things, right? Very, very, that's very natural. And this is very simple, a yes or no question, because contraction means no, but expansion is a yes. And that's how I actually work now on a daily basis with things. I do that with food, I do that with everything, because that's how advanced this can go. But of course it takes practice, because your body will then, and your soul will tell you what it actually needs, what is in alignment. But we are so conditioned to listen to the mind, and that's very, very loud. It's hard at the beginning, and it's not just you may feel something, maybe there's a word that comes up, or it just doesn't feel good, and there's just this knowing, and you can't explain it, and that is what you need to trust. But that takes courage. And I always recommend people to start with small things, like a coffee date. You can't really hurt anyone with it, right? I mean, the other person may feel rejected or disappointed, but that's okay. Nobody dies. you don't lose any money, whatever, things like that. So start with that. That's what I would recommend. Yeah, I have millions and trillions of practical examples where I did follow my intuition and where I didn't. And that's good too, because then you can reflect back. We are meant to make mistakes. There is no mistake as such as a learning. Yeah.
And tell me, how receptive are people to actually take part in these? Like, it's like Anissa said, you know, a lot of people feel, especially when you're working with corporates, that it's a whole lot of woo stuff. But do you find that you feel people are more conscious and aware now of all these other modalities, all these other learnings that we can and practices that we can put into place? Do you find that they're more receptive to it?
Absolutely, because obviously we're going through a huge shift in humanity, and the planet and everything is changing. And there's people, I feel like that a lot of people are coming to a point where they have a lot of understanding. They have done a lot, they have tried everything, but there's still something that's not working. Like it happened to me in my life, right? I thought I'm doing everything. I did this and that. And then there was still so much resistance and a lot of things that didn't work. And so more and more people starting to seek. But of course, that it depends where they're at, and a lot of people have still the woo-woo and shame, and that's witchy and healer and nonsense, and that's totally fine. That's okay too. And I believe that there will always be people who will be like that. In terms of your questions with corporates, to be honest, my energetic field is so like structured. People will when I say structured, it's just like, you know, those people will not even come to me, right? Because I don't chase, I don't do cold calling or anything like that. So I won't even attract people who are not open to that, if that makes sense. But I have had clients I had business owners who asked me about business decisions where I was channeling for them, and they found that very beneficial at that time.
Yeah, I just find that with the corporates, especially now in South Africa, I think we're catching up to the rest of the world. But I think that they have become a lot more open to it, understanding that the person who is there as an employee isn't just that person on its own. You know, you have a personal life, and whatever's going on in your personal life affects who you are at work. So they're becoming a lot more open to it. But you might not necessarily find that with the people that you have to work with within the corporates. So the mindset might be there and the objective might be there for the corporates. But like a lot of people, and I've found that when you start to speak about all of this here, it's actually opened up so many people's minds and understandings, because they just basically weren't aware of it. And I think with that constant information being shared with them, it changes the mindset completely. Because a lot of the time what you can do is like you can understand your trauma and your pain and whatnot, and you can analyze it, you can talk about it, you can study about it. But even when you're putting in like practices like journaling and doing the therapy and mindset work and whatnot, you still feel that there is something that's just stored deeper that you haven't been able to touch on. And this is exactly where you come in, right? That's that deeper level that you go to allow people to heal from a more beneficial and holistic perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is going back, and you were saying it perfectly right. You can have, you know, done all the work and the tools, and it's about the embodiment. Also, I feel like a lot of people know a lot of things, but they don't embody it. And you can feel it if somebody is embodying what they study or not, because it's feeling feeling inauthentic, right? You can feel
like,
it. I feel it.
definitely. I mean, one of my things I talk about is it starts with self-awareness, then comes the holistic habits, but you need embodied leadership of yourself to be able to practice all of this tools and awarenesses that you have. Now, that's easy for us at an individual level, but I want to come back to Jamila, whether it's a corporate or an MPO you do work for, whatever the institution might be. I want to come back to the science behind it and making that intangible tangible, because ultimately this is personal and professional development, right? It's that spiritual journey, and we are spiritual beings having a human experience, right? So if we innately know that, how do you make your work, Mia, tangible? You don't chase. I love that. I love what you said, because your frequency and your vibrational energy and the resonance that you are at, people come towards you. You don't need to go and market yourself, because you're then selling, and it's contradictory to that embodiment of that vibrational energy that you want to resonate at, or at that quantum level. But how do you then, for if you had to be approached by a corporate, how would you make it tangible for them?
Well, I mean, firstly, there would be questionnaires after, for the employees about how their energy feels, like what is shifting within them. That is still very like subjective, of course, but then you can put it into the metrics of the company. How about the productivity, and did the sales go up, for example, because they look after the employees, they feel more energized, they attract more people, they are wanting to come to work, they are happy, and that will be shown in the metrics automatically, right? These are things that you can measure with. And then of course can do interviews with the employees. How does it work for you? Does it increase your uh, your motivation to come to work or not, or is it helping you? Then you can also, of course, the physical metrics, like how is your body shifting? Do you feel more energized, when you change sleeping patterns, things like that? And I feel like you can totally integrate that into the metrics of the company.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
sorry to interject, do you have a specific tool? Because I know in Jamila's line of work, and I mean, we have similar lines of work here, but there are different instruments and assessments that I use. They don't belong to me. There most certainly are different schools of thoughts measuring different parts of the physiological parts of the, whether it's the brain or whether it's heart-brain coherence with heart map, as an example. So what is something that you use as an instrument, tool, or assessment to measure whether people are living from this embodied level where they're supposed to be?
Well, I don't have any like external tools. I literally use the body, because there
Okay.
is tool, because
Yeah.
if
Okay.
the
And I think,
bonds.
Anissa, there's so much of research that's going on. I was just reading something the other day, and they spoke about, and when you talk about energy and frequency and sound frequencies and whatnot,
Yes.
they took, there was a study that was done, and they took 2 vials of blood, and they placed one in a room that was just quiet, and the other vial was placed in a room, and they played music for a specific period of time. When they went back and they looked at the 2 vials of blood, the one that was in the quiet room was dead. There was nothing. There was nothing living in it. The other one was absolutely still viable and was living. So it's, there's so much of scientific theories now, and so much research that's been done to actually give us that, that extra bit of scientific knowledge and proof, so that we can then marry these two worlds together and show that, it's not just about talk therapy, or it's like that link that we do, the OHFP. It actually shows you from the questionnaire that people have to fill out. It shows you what they're going through. It shows you the levels of stress and burnout that they're going through. But it also then ties in with how this affects a company, and how to affect your bottom line and your return on investment. And the importance of understanding who and what your staff are going through, to be able to help you and help them to participate and to engage to their peak performance. So that it's like you were saying, we're living in an age now where people are just so much more conscious than we used to be before. And it's like you said as well, that people are learning to trust their bodies now. They're learning to trust the intuition and to go with that. And the body has so much. Even when we look at religion, Anisa, in the Quran, it talks about how your body has the means to heal itself. And the food that we have, we don't need any sorts of medical medicines or anything of that sort. We have everything that we need within ourselves and within what's natural to this world that we live in. So I think a lot more people are being more open to that and learning more about that. And it's the same, I think, with family constellations and understanding soul contracts and how that affects who you are today and the work that we need to do. So not just by going and sitting and going through talk therapy and your usual practices that you would go to. I think we're becoming a lot more open to all of these alternate therapies that are out there.
And just for Anisa, for your question, if if I ever, if a company would approach me, I would get the external tools, people who are like obviously do brain measurements and who are experts in that, because I'm not an expert in that, but it will be amazing to do that because I love to see that as well, how it's all changing. But what I do with when people on board with me or come to me, and they really want to be with the quantum embodiment program, to do a blood test with their doctor, at the beginning and at the end. I personally believe that every 3 months a blood test is great because our needs are changing. We're going through different cycles, and you have different stress levels at different times of the year. So we have different needs. I think that's a good measurement tool as well to see where we're at in the body as well.
That's brilliant. I mean, I like that in terms of the blood test, because even our blood type tells us a lot about our physiology and what it is that we need to be eating, right? In terms of our nutrition needs. But none of us actually do follow it. So I like the idea that we do the blood test because it then gives you the indication. And we can do a lot more from that blood test than just saying, well, where are you now with certain levels? It's really to be able to say, what does the future need to look like? So I think that's where your work plays an integral role, to say, this is where we are now, but the desired state is over there. And what is it that we need to do in between that to let go and drain away, as you say, what needs to be drained or moved out of the body in terms of that stored trauma or whatever else it is that you're storing there. So, I mean, for me, I want to come back to your journey, Mia, because I know we've gone off on a tangent on the modalities and stuff, but I'm intrigued to know, more about this. I like to call it the hero's journey, and how you moved out of whatever those difficulties and maybe challenges and obstacles that you endured, and where you might have even questioned, why me? Like, why is this happening to me? And when did you then shift out of why me to earlier on that you mentioned, you've got to go through this dark experiences to come into this light again? So what else do we need to know about you that can be a catalyst for our guests to say, well, I relate to that. And actually, if Mia can do it and is shining here today, sharing her testimony, we can do it too.
Absolutely. That's why I love your guys' platform and in general speaking about it, because there's no difference between you and I. It's just the consciousness and the way, because we all are channels of the divine, and we all have access to it. It's just a matter of making ourselves, our vessel available. That's why you have to shed all the stuff in order to be receptive for the light and everything that's shown to you. And the beautiful thing is that we all have this unique soul blueprint that we came here for. And we all need each other. That's what I just wanted to say, because I just said at the ocean before, and it says the wave is not separate from the ocean. The ocean is expressing itself through the waves, and it's the same, like the universe is expressing itself through each one of us. Just wanted to say that before I share some things about my own journey. Well, how I the way I grew up, there was a lot of violence. My father was an alcoholic, beating up my mom, and betrayal. I got sexual abuse, bullied, and all these things. And as a child, you're not really aware of there's something wrong. I believe, I think you're a child, you do that, but of course I knew that there is something that's not right, because other kids weren't like that, or things wouldn't happen there. So, but of course that was deeply stored in the subconscious. I wouldn't be coping with that, and also my family wouldn't be emotionally available to me at that time, so I can actually process that. So when I started studying sports science, and I moved far away from home, as far as possible, not because I didn't like it, but I guess my soul, I love to explore. I'm an adventurer, so I thought I'm going very far down South Germany. And of course, that was the first time where I really was away from my surroundings, the little village I grew up in, and the little container, and I expanded my view. And of course, I had time to look within, and then I realized there's something that wants to come out. I always journaled since I was 10. I was expressing myself through journaling and movement, but I journaled. I always did. I felt that was my way to talk to the spirit, I guess, and to myself. I didn't know it at that time consciously what I was doing, but I would always write everything down. And I also developed an eating disorder. When my papa died, was a coping mechanism. So I was punishing my body for everything, and I went deep into that through my sports study, because I thought I don't want to go through these cycles anymore. I wanted to let go of that, but how do I do it? Because I only by myself got to a certain point, but I couldn't break through. And that's when I decided, when I was 19, I'm going to go and see a psychologist, because it was supported in the system, the study system in Germany, university, very good. And that led me on this journey to go deep. And that's when I, did the psychoanalysis and, behaviorism. And I went deeper into that, learned about food. And that was a breaking point where I cracked open, because I started talking about things the very first time, really. And that's when I started to realize, hey, something happened when I was 6 years old. What was that? And of course it was still very, simmering beneath the surface. And when I was trying to express myself, for example, my partner at that time, he would say, oh, you're just making this up. I would be pushed down again. Right? So I was trying to come through and talking, and it would be pushed down. No blaming or shaming here. It's all about wherever we at that time. And then, I took all that with me, and I, moved through certain things. I started to look at my body differently, but it's a whole journey. It's an ongoing journey. And there's every single time when I moved to another level, there was another devil. So something else would come up and would be shown. And when I say devil, I just use that word here. But what I'm trying to say is that we're shedding layer by layer, and there's nothing to be afraid of. It's actually a really amazing to go on this journey, because you will only ever be given what you're able to alchemize at that time. And if you're not ready for it, then you won't be shown. And then next time, oh, I advanced. Now I can see that, wow, it's going that deep. So there was a lot stored in my nervous system, and then the conditioning of you're not good enough. I grew up in scarcity mindset, and we never had enough, right? So I took that on, and that's really a big thing in my nervous system: scarcity, lack, and not self-worth. But it's not just coming from this lifetime, which I have discovered through my years of journey, but it's ancestral. And also the sexual abuse is something that runs in my family. It happened to my mother, and then to my grandmother, and my father was actually the product of a rape. And so when you look at an energy perspective, he had this in his DNA, right? And in the nervous system was already stored in his fascia, in his cells. He brought that in, and through, creating us, me and my 3 brothers and 3 sisters, that is all passed on. It's crazy, no? And when you look at that, and it's nothing to be afraid of, to be like, oh my gosh, it goes so deep, but it's about awareness, to be like, wow, that's why this burden, challenge, blessing in disguise is so heavy, because it's not just mine. I'm carrying that from my whole ancestry, and that led me on this journey to actually go on the ancestral clearing and cleansing and stuff like that. And yeah, the rejection piece is also because I was actually meant to be an abortion as well. And I, when you're born into that energy that you bring in, and it's not about being like, oh, poor me. Maybe, of course, I had a bit of a victim phase. I was riding that train for maybe a short time. It's very natural, but it's more about to be aware that I feel easily rejected because can get triggered very easily in that way. But these are just some things for people to share how deep. That's very deep. I went very, very deep, but this
Yeah.
all shown in my womb space. I had always trouble with my period, and of course, being an athlete, ignoring the cycle would feed that as well. And it's really, for me, a constant tuning in, the balance here between the feminine, the masculine, and there's a lot going on in my womb space, and it's also something I have really focused on this year. And that there's a whole red tail to that, how the body responded to that. It's incredible when you start allowing it to express itself.
Yeah, Mia, firstly, thank you for sharing so boldly and courageously and vulnerably, because this is why we prefer this platform to be that way, because it just makes it, you don't need an invitation then. You can see that it's okay. You don't need permission to validate and witness yourself in the pain, in the trauma, because sometimes we want that witnessing and validation on the outside. But if we just get still enough to witness it within ourselves and to know that it was for our higher good, it's those soul contracts. And what is the archetypal roles that we then end up showing up as? Because I'm a product of prostitution. And what I found is that I ended up prostituting myself as a people pleaser in all my relationships. Now, whilst I wasn't doing the actual prostitution, I was simply following that same pattern and maybe what else has happened before my mom's time. So I do resonate with what you're saying, is that we've got to go look at that ancestral lineage, and we've got to be the cycle breakers. And you strike me as just that. You are a cycle breaker, and it's not easy being the cycle breaker because you're often
No.
misunderstood, and people shy away because you are reflecting a mirror back to them. And so they're very easily triggered then when you are not only a cycle breaker, but you're a truth speaker, and you do so boldly that people shy away from it because they'd rather sit in their suffering than come into truth. So how did you kind of move out and say, I'm no longer a victim, and that this is my catalyst to be victorious and be the hero that I am, and I've always actually been. I just needed to step into that soul contract.
Yeah, well, it's not like an overnight thing that you do.
Yeah.
It's a process, and the more I started to really follow my my intuition and my soul, then I realized this is the life that I'm meant to live. And the more empowered I felt, then the feedback of my body, I felt more, expansive. My body would heal itself. I would have more energy. I would feel inspired. Like, I'm so excited to get up. Of course, I have mornings too where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. But, I'm not saying, again, like, we are humans. But then also at night, oh, I'm so excited. I don't even want this day to end. But it's like life happens. Life is meant to challenge us. And when you come from that understanding, like, it becomes a flow because you learn to embrace the challenges. I just recently, 2 weeks ago, had a super massive rock bottom moment. I literally wanted to die. Well, my ego wanted to die, of course, the parts that no longer serve me. Like the moments when you crawl on your knees and you kind of like say to God, no more. I can't. No more. What is it that you want to teach me? I don't know. I must be blind. I must be deaf, whatever it is. But please show me. What am I missing here? What do I need to release? And I know I shared that on my podcast.
I'm feeling that because I've had a few of those lately. Just this week was one of those. It's like, Yeah, I can hustle and get myself through a few things that I've navigated before because I also come from that scarcity. But hell no, then there are newer things, and I'm like, really, God? Like, what? What more? I've had enough now. The lessons, I know what they are. What more do you want me to learn in 1 year, and how much more? So I don't know about you, Jamila, but can
I've
you
been
feel
feeling
that
like
this
that
has
for the
been a
past
year like
month,
that?
Anissa. And I'm sure my son has noticed it because a lot of the time he bears the brunt of it. But I read something so like it really sat with me, and it was by the Three Initiatives, and it was a quote and about as within, so without.
Hmm.
And they speak about how you have to keep on questioning yourself. You got to keep on questioning yourself, and the better that you make yourself, that would be the reflection of what you experience outside of you. So for me, I think a big one was to take accountability, and taking accountability in the sense of my the responsibility I have to be able to learn more. And that's why I love this platform, is because each week we get to realize that there's so much more that we don't know with the guests that we have on, and with the knowledge that you bring and share with us, like every other guest has done before. We realize how much more there is to actually learn about ourselves, how much more we've got to look within and to take that responsibility. I'm sure that there might be many listeners out there who didn't know anything about what the body stores and the trauma that it stores, and everything that you've been sharing with us today. So this is, Anissa, from a very, very selfish perspective, I think this platform has done more for Anissa and I personally than for any other objective that we may have begun doing this. And I just really truly feel so blessed to have all the wonderful people that we've had on to share and give us the knowledge, and um, increase our knowledge onto how we can
Absolutely.
be better people, and how we can start to unlearn everything that we've learned over the years, and to come back and to remember who we are from a soul perspective. And like you say, we've got this one body, and to appreciate it and to understand it and to realize the power that we hold with it.
Mm-hmm.
So as we are closing out, I mean, Jamila, that was very powerful. And there's a lot there. And I hate that we always come to the end and then there's all these additional insights and golden nuggets and we have to say goodbye. But on that note, Mia, what is there that you'd like as the final closeout gem that you want to leave, the hidden gem that you are in Vietnam, but what is the hidden gem that you have to share as closing out for our audience today?
Trust yourself. Fully trust yourself. Get to know yourself. Because if you don't get to know yourself, who then? Like, you are the person you spend the rest of your life with. That's guaranteed, 100%. I think that's the most
Absolutely.
important message. Yeah.
And you, Jamila, any final closeout comment?
Yeah, I think for me, like from this conversation, which you've given us so much depth and compassion, and it was so wonderful to listen to the truth you have and feel for this work that you are doing. And it just reminds us that healing isn't about fixing what's broken, but it's just remembering what's already whole within ourselves, and that listening, to your understanding that our bodies are not the problem, they actually a portal for us. And healing doesn't always begin with just the thinking. It begins with, like you said, the feeling and the movement, and allowing ourselves, I think, to come home to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I suppose my closing out to Mia is thank you, deeply grateful. And what I take out as this is home is where your heart and soul connection lies. And that is the truest, most divine essence of coming back to that embodiment or quantum embodiment, is that you make your home inside yourself, and that is your safe space, your sanctuary, and that the external world are just stimuli, and that it's only the inner world that needs to be almost nurtured and go with those ebbs and flows in order to understand it, to live from a place of soul expression. I think that's what your in your bio. I like that word, soul expression.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Anissa and
Do
Milan. It was a
stay.
beautiful, beautiful conversation. I learned so much too. Literally, like there's so much activation happening and that will
Oh,
ripple out. So it's very, very beautiful. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And do stay on the line with us. We normally do a short debrief. I know it's 9:30 p.m. now where you are. So, so we'll just quickly end the live. Thank you for those that have been here, Ronald and our regulars. We appreciate your contributions, your wisdom. I know I haven't acknowledged anyone on Instagram, but I have been typing away where I could. Thank you so much for being here. And those that are going to watch the replay, don't hesitate to share your comments and your views and your experiences and your golden nuggets of wisdom with us. Until next week, we'll see you then. For those that are celebrating the special Christmas time, please do. I think we're only going on afterwards, right, Jamila? We're going on the day after Christmas, I think.
Yes, yes, it's the day
Yes.
after.
So do have a beautiful, beautiful quality time, magical time with your family, and connect at that soul level, I suppose, in this special time.
Yes.
Until next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Stay with us.